Welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned with us. This is our second conversation for this morning, and it's an interesting one because while we are in the month of June, which is recognized as Men's Mental Health Month, a mental health awareness month, that is, speaking about men, we also play an important role in the home as dads, as fathers, right? And that to an extent adds or takes away from a healthy mind, depending on how you approach it. And so we have joining us on set Mr. Marcus August, no stranger to Open Your Eyes. In fact, becoming slowly
a regular,
an honorary member of Open Your Eyes.
Yeah.
And he's the Education and Communications Officer over at NCFC.
Good morning,
Mr.
Marcus.
August.
Good morning, good morning. Thank you guys for having me this morning.
When you all look at the role of fathers in a home, what do you look at in terms of how it impacts social dynamics within our country?
So it's looked at from a holistic point of view, which means social, emotional, physical, spiritual, etc. And we have worked alongside UNICEF to take up the stats from that 24% of children actually have their fathers in their home to now where it is for 2024. And so fathers play an extremely important role in character development for both children. Yeah. So that's primarily showing the importance of not having one parent but both parents in your home. For example, if I ask right now, what's your most memorable moment with your dad?
Well, you're asking me, right? But it could either be the trauma or it could be the good
I would ask,
experience.
can I give you an uncle? Can I give you a
sure,
brother?
I actually have a really good memory with my dad, despite all that would have happened after. But just growing up as a child, I remember on 2 occasions going hunting. He in a village, and he used to love hunting. I remember the first time hunting or going after an armadillo. Right? We saw one, and I was young and excited that we were in the bushes, and we saw our first target for the evening. And he's like, quiet. Just stay quiet. And he pulled out that like a BB shotgun, right? And he aimed at it, shot it, caught it, and that was the coolest thing to me. We went down farther, we saw an iguana, and he like, all right, you want to take one shot? I missed, and then he took the shot and he caught it. Most exciting thing, and that was a part of developing me and who I am, like a core memory for me, hunting in the wild with my father.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I know, right?
And yours with your uncle?
I have many memories with my uncles, but if I could dig deep, I could probably find maybe one with my dad, but I could talk about my uncles. They are such protected figures in my life. I remember trying to figure out, if I could decide which one of them would probably walk me down the aisle, I might need them all to go. But also my brother too. I love everything about him. So it's really going to be hard to find one memory.
Correct. And if you notice, you mentioned protection.
And
so there's a lot of children's rights that we champion, and I've mentioned these 100 times before. There's 54 rights, and a mother can, I won't say she's not limited to only doing so much, but with joint together with the father, there's a bigger and a better experience for experiencing children's rights and protecting children.
That's so interesting that you said that, and I fear I might get really passionate about this because I think it's one of those conversations that we so rarely have. We cannot deny that there are a lot of single mother dynamics in households, and oftentimes there's the notion where people would say, a mom can't raise a son into a man. What do you say to that? Do you believe that a female or a woman could raise a boy into a man?
This is a personal point of view, and so this is a nice question because I believe women could raise boys. However, from any woman in my life, I've never seen them like go on a car and do certain things and change tire and do certain things, certain tasks. And so I realized that I learned that from the men in my life, like checking your oil, your pressure for your tire, changing your transmission fluid. Your transmission oil, sorry. Your hunting experience. You know, men do certain things, and so social imprinting happens. So now when I had my car and having that experience, I knew what to do. You know, and so
the men in your life did that. It might not necessarily have been your dad, but
and so I could say that women could raise boys to be men, but I would believe certain, you know, tasks and skills would come from
certain rites of passages. They just connect better with male figures,
like your uncles and your brother. I think there's also a conversation to be had about men that aren't necessarily your blood relative, but enter your life as father figures.
So true,
right?
Paul.
And makes an impact and leaves an imprint. I could recall, because while my father would have been in my life for perhaps the first 5-10 years, thereabout, more present the first 5 and a bit less during the second 5, and then absent later on. There were times when, for example, I had relationship questions or issues, right? And I don't want to go ask my mother whether a woman, how you deal with it.
I feel like I'm like a fly on the wall
No,
listening to these. I love it.
But wait, because women wouldn't typically ask their dad about that.
Right, so you ask your dad. And what was happening to me at an early age, because I didn't have a father and I wasn't opening my life to other men, usually I butcher the situation, fail completely horribly at it, and then I go and seek help after from a man that is not from the family, from the bloodline, and then things are corrected. When I think, to an extent, while I take fault for a lot of my actions, if
it would have been helpful to
would have been there, it would have been more helpful to just one time.
And so,
Dad, where to go on it is.
And so the cheat code now is that NCFC, we have the Art of Parenting manual, right?
Interesting.
And so it has about 4 chapters broken up into 2 annexes, and it helps us understand our role, and it talks about how to interact with our kids in regards to topics like those.
So you're saying, because we all hear as well that there's no manual to this parenting thing, it sounds like NCFC have come up with the manual.
Yes, we have a manual, and if you don't want to read the manual, we actually have the We Family Show. It's it's on all our platforms, especially YouTube.
So let's talk about some of these points that people would get from this experience, this workshop or training of sorts. How can you go about being a more effective parent?
First of all, there's communication skills that you would have to develop. For example, when I talk about when I'm in the classrooms or in these forums, there's this thing that I noticed growing up, that in the Caribbean, when parents tend to want to lecture their children, it's a bit harsh. For example, they want to hate and hear me. And then in the parenting manual, there's ways that you could sit the child down and speak properly to the child, so the child could understand your request. You know?
So communication is very important in this manual, you're saying?
Communication, and also expressing emotion. For example, hugging your child, telling your child you love them, you care, they're beautiful, all that stuff.
You know, I think that this gives us an opportunity for us to connect mental health and men's mental health to these softer types of communication, because we oftentimes recognize the males to be these harder, stern, authoritative figures. What have you guys observed from NCFC when we connect fatherhood and the role that men play in homes to mental health?
Your family becomes your mental support, to be honest. You know, when men have their downtime, they would either talk to a spouse, they would either talk to a brother, or they would get counseling. those are mainly the avenues that men do go to get back that mental support. Sorry.
Do we see that men are actually doing that though in this day and age?
It happens, but it happens in different ways. For example, Paul might be at the gym. He might have gym bros and they talk about stuff. Because I've seen him at the gym.
Yeah, correct.
And so, and then you have other guys like in a senior age, they might be at a public venue drinking or something.
The barbershop.
Or the barbershop.
Or the bar.
Yeah, or the bar.
Maybe. Okay.
Yeah, but it's just one of the new things. And then lately, I went golfing and I noticed the men are congregating, talking about life and experiences, investments, and that, and bouncing ideas off each other. And I say, yeah, it's happening. Yeah, it's just happening in different dynamics.
So that's to say that this socializing is a huge part.
Definitely, you need that.
So just tell me, what's the overall goal here for NCFC when it comes to your work, where fathers and building stronger families are concerned? What's the overall goal here?
We want to highlight the fact that being an upright, outstanding, moral dad not only affects your children, but it also affects other children by social imprinting, like you've seen. For example, you might see somebody another father do something charitable, maybe assist an old person to cross the street, anything like that in regards to moral, positive character building. If men realize that that's very important and they upkeep those moral standards, it not only affects their children in a positive way, but other children and people who look up to them.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much, Marcos. We could have definitely taken this much, much further. I think my final question to you is, how can people get involved with the workshops?
They're usually posted on our social media platforms. For right now, we are working alongside BFLA. For this one at BFLA, it's a physical. So you want to get your blood glucose checked, your cholesterol check, your HIV status, etc.
When is that?
It's running from now until I believe the end of the month with BFLA.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Definitely.
We take another quick break, but don't go anywhere, because when we come back, it's all about the Dangrega Town Council's Griga Park Fest. We'll be talking about that when we come back.